Hello and welcome to Under the Umbrella. I'm your host, WDTN Plus meteorologist Melissa Barrington. And on this show, we are highlighting various aspects of weather and how they impact our community. Our choices of topics will be far and wide ranging. This week, we are talking about how fireworks are impacted by the weather. And today, we are joined by Mike Murtland from American Fireworks. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Hello.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, I'd like to just find out what types of fireworks are typically used in a 4th of July celebration.
The typical professional grade fireworks that we use are shells and different types of what we call one-shots and cakes.
Okay.
There's a lot of different types of stuff there's out there, but mainly shells. Most people see shells.
Okay. So over time, have the manufacturers of fireworks, have they changed how they've created the fireworks because of the weather?
Yes. They've mainly in the professional world, they've like coated with plastic bags or like wax coatings type things to make them more waterproof. The match that we use on it, they've coated it to help it resist water. Things like that. There's quite a bit of stuff that we do also.
So you said that you have been working with fireworks like your entire life, basically. So how has that changed from going from pre-professional to now a professional with working with different types of fireworks?
When you go from one side to the other, you learn more respect.
Okay.
You see what can happen, when you're dealing with professional grade fireworks versus consumer fireworks. Not saying that consumer stuff isn't, dangerous, but it is. But when you step into the professional world, you're using things that are much, much bigger and more powerful.
So you said that the professional grade ones are waterproof nowadays, correct?
Yeah, somewhat. They're very resistant up to a certain level, and then we step in and we further ensure that they don't get wet.
So how does that compare to what people are buying in the store? Are those waterproofed at all for general folks?
No. I mean, they're wrapped in paper. They're good for a while, but if you set it out there and it gets a little wet, it's okay. But if it gets really wet, it'll soak in. You may think it dries up, but the composition inside the powder inside those tubes will suck that moisture up, and then if it, like say, it sits out there all afternoon and then it dries up, it becomes a solid instead of what it was designed to do. And when it lights, it'll explode like a bomb, not like it was intended.
So it will malfunction then?
Correct.
Okay, or could it sometimes misfire, or could it just not work at all?
Yeah. Well, the misfiring would be it would explode. If it got enough moisture and it was still wet, it wouldn't fire at all.
Okay. So does it matter? You said you mainly use shells. What about these cakes and stuff? Do they work a little bit differently based on the weather at all? Does like the rain impact them, or does temperature or humidity?
Well, it used to. The humidity used to. But the chemicals that they use now are much different, much more stable to combat that kind of thing. So climate control really isn't a thing anymore. We can shoot in anything.
So have you seen in your career how they have changed or evolved over time based on the weather?
Yeah. More manufacturers will send us the shells already pre-bagged. Mm-hmm. Professional grade stuff, like you would use, like really high-end stuff, they would make sure that they would either bag it or dip it in wax, or use different types of materials like plastic. Instead of everything being wrapped in a cardboard, it would be plastic.
So does that type of material matter based on what the weather is, on the humidity, or if it's raining out, or how hard the rain is actually coming down?
Well, not really. Not when you're shooting in the rain, everything's already dry, so it's only going to get wet for a second or two.
Okay.
But if you think you have everything waterproofed and you just have that extra layer of protection that they've either put it in a plastic ball or it's been coated with something, or they have it in a piece of plastic as well. So that helps out.
Okay. So there's definitely a lot of things that have changed over time here that have allowed fireworks shows to go on in the rain. Now, what about if there's thunder or lightning in the area? Now, I don't know if that's up to you or the event organizer, whether or not they're going to keep that going, but does lightning affect whether or not you as a company could shoot off fireworks?
Yes, lightning. We will not shoot in lightning at all. For
Okay.
one, we're not going to compromise anybody out there due to lightning.
Is there usually like a time limit that you wait for? Like a lot of times sporting events wait 30 minutes or 60 minutes until there's no thunder in the area.
Well, typically we will have a meeting with our sponsor and our fire guy on site.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll determine what we feel is at the safest point to go. And that's typically how we figure out when we're going to shoot. But if there's any lightning, I mean, I have this ultimate say at the end that whether I'm going to shoot it or not.
So who's giving you your weather briefing?
Usually our phones. Everybody has a different app, so you get all this information.
Okay, well, you have to make sure you download the WDTN weather app if you don't already have it, so that you can look at our app. So you're making the decision then based on what you're looking at.
Yes, we're what we see, what's going on. Sometimes we'll determine that if we see a storm coming, then we all get together and say, hey, let's go before the storm. And so typically, like if there's rain in the area and stuff like that, some places will go ahead and shoot before the show time because, they want to get the show off because it's very dangerous to unload a show. It's probably more dangerous to unload a show than it is to load it.
Oh, so you're saying to actually fire it off. It's more dangerous to do that. Wow. Okay. So what about rain versus lightning? So if there's just general rain in the area, is that going to limit you? And sometimes that could be light, moderate, or heavy rain versus, now there's a thunderstorm. So what's the difference between the two of those?
Well, our racks, we will cover them in plastic. And if it rains, typically we take the plastic off. But if it rains, we can shoot right through that plastic. So everything's already waterproofed inside the firework tubes that we have for the shells. They're already waterproofed in there. And then the second layer would be us covering it with plastic. And then if it's raining heavy, light rain, it doesn't matter. We can shoot through it.
Okay. So do you have any stories or anything where you remember that there was like a significant weather event that you were like, wow, like maybe we shouldn't have done that one, or, something that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah. Wright Patterson.
What happened then?
We had a huge storm roll in that afternoon. And a few years prior to that, we had that really big storm that rolled in, and it moved our racks. They had clocked winds of over 90 mile an hour out there, and that canceled. Then a couple years later, we did another show there, and it rained most of the day, and we got all set up. It took us like 3 or 4 days to set that show up. It was so huge. And it got so saturated with water out there that they had to shut. They just went ahead and canceled the event like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
And you were supposed to shoot off that night?
Yeah. So,
oh my gosh,
first time in my life doing fireworks for many, many years. They came up to us and said, "Well, let's shoot it off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon." The sun came out and everything. that was different. But,
so you shot it off an entire show during the day?
Yeah.
So that brings a question of how well can you see the fireworks during the day versus the evening?
Surprisingly better than you think.
Really?
Yeah. It's really weird though because you can actually see the shell going up in the air.
Uh-huh.
And then you see it burst. Where at night you don't see the shell going up there, you just see it burst.
Right. Well, sometimes don't you just see like the smoke going up or something like that when the shell's going up?
Yeah. Some of them have tails.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a specific type of firework that has a tail to watch that going up, but others don't have that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So this time you could really see it going up. Did it affect the colors at all?
No. It just. I mean, you could make it out what was being shot.
Right.
The colors aren't as bright or brilliant, obviously, because the sun came out.
Uh-huh.
But it was neat. It was different. I've done that a few times since then. But
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably not super popular to see that during the day, but probably folks are like, "What's going on?"
Yeah. Yeah. It was for people that's never seen something like that. They're like, "That's cool," because during the day they've never seen that before. But
how long typically, like after sunset, is ideal for you to watch fireworks? Like, do you wait a specific timetable for that to happen, or are you like, now's the time to go?
Well, it's based on what our sponsor wants.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll encourage them. We need to go a little long. Let's wait a little bit longer. It's not quite dark enough, or the viewing areas into where the sunset is. So then it's a little bit brighter in the sky over there. But if it's the opposite direction, then the sun could be setting, but it's kind of dark on the viewing side of things.
So who picks where it's going to be shot off at, like what direction? Because like you said, the sun does impact the viewing.
Yes. Well, it just depends on like where they have their event, where their crowd's going to be. I don't think anybody really takes that into account, like where the back, where the sun.
The backdrop
We
is.
do,
Yeah.
because that's what we do. But
Do you make recommendations then when you go to an event and say, hey, you might want to consider going this way versus that way because of the sun?
we have, yeah, based on the times that they'll ask us in the time of year, because it's like this time of year, it's still daylight at 9:30.
Yeah.
So we get to 10 o'clock. Typically, 10 o'clock is about everybody's event time. Some places may go a little later, but usually it's 10 o'clock, and that's usually pretty well dark enough. But like when we do winter shows, like we could shoot at 6 o'clock, because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
dark, and that's great for us.
Well, and it's super dark too by then
Yeah.
because the sun's already been set for quite a while. So that's always nice. Like,
Yeah.
do you see a difference between the summer and the winter brilliance of the fireworks?
Not really. The colors are pretty much the same because of the way they burn, the
Okay.
chemicals that they're made up with. So again, the weather doesn't really affect it too much anymore because of the way the stuff's made. So
Okay. All right. Well, when we come back, we are going to take a short break and we are going to talk more about how weather impacts fire displays when we return. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to Under the Umbrella. We are joined today by Mike Murtland from American Fireworks, and we are going to talk a little bit more about how the weather impacts the fireworks show. And I wanted to start, Mike, with let's break down the weather into various components. So let's start with wind. Wind is obviously one of the biggest things out there because you're dealing with smoke, you're dealing with wind speed, wind direction. How does that affect what direction and what you're doing with the fireworks?
well, your wind. The rule says we can't go above 20 miles an hour.
Okay.
But you have to use common sense. 20 miles an hour is pretty powerful if you're in an area where you're shooting stuff where people are kind of close. Because the way we have what they call a fallout zone. So anything in that zone, we can't have anybody in there. Okay? The zone's defined by the size of your shell, and the rule says it has to be 70 foot per inch. So you're shooting a 3-inch shell, it has to be 210 feet.
Okay.
And we shoot all the way up to, like, I just shot some 8-inch shells at a show we just did. So, that's a lot. You need a lot of distance. So the wind can affect, where your fallout zone is. So if the wind's going a certain direction, then you kind of have to move that circle over to that area.
So are you looking, do you check like the wind at your specific location versus like what the forecast for the wind is? Because like, the wind in the city might be different than if you're like out at a lake, for example, where it's obviously windier. So how are you taking that into account? And is it wind speed, like constant speed, or is it wind gusts? How do you account for like wind gusts?
You have to use common sense when it comes to it. You look at the wind directions, where the crowd is. So, for example, like you just said, like if you're shooting at a lake, your fallout zone is typically going to be probably around that water area, edge area. So people are going to view it from the side towards the lake. And then if there's wind gusting and you're getting close to that 20 mile an hour and it's blowing away from the people, well, common sense tells you that, hey, it's going to be going away from the people. But if it's blowing towards the people, you obviously want to say, okay, well, I'm still within the parameter of under 20 miles an hour, but I know that it's going to reach those people. So, you're not going to do it.
Right.
So you just pay attention. You just have to really pay attention.
Do you change at all the fireworks where they're being launched from, or that is set and there's no wiggle room on where those are being launched from?
When a typical professional grade fireworks show, once you get there and you set it up, it's set up. You don't move it.
You don't move it. Okay. Are there any wind restrictions on any of the different types of fireworks?
No. You can shoot it at anything. There's different types of fireworks. So, like when you're doing what they call close prox fireworks, that like say you're doing like a small like high school football game or soccer game, and there's people that can be those type of fireworks. People can be much closer. Typically, don't have debris. Some do have debris, and you have to account for that. So if the wind's going to carry the stuff to a certain direction, sometimes you'll want to shoot into the wind. So you push into it so when the debris comes back at you, it comes pretty much right back where you shot it from.
Is there ever a problem with like, do any of the fireworks have like trajectories that are low, middle, or high, and that may change based on the wind at all, or is that not an issue?
When you're doing when we do a competition, you want things to be as precise as possible. So you'll use better quality stuff. It's really expensive stuff, and so a lot of times those shells will have more lift charge in them than a typical shell because when they come out, they shoot faster, harder, and it's harder for the wind to carry them. But it will affect how it carries the shell or whatever you're shooting if the wind is blowing. You'll see it go up and then curve. And then when it breaks, if you really pay attention, you'll see it actually floating away or floating with the wind, whichever direction it's traveling. Typically, it's not really a problem because people are viewing it from such a large area. But in a competition or what we call pyromusical type situation, you really want it to be precise, so you account for that.
Okay. Well, okay. So I want to talk a little bit about weather here and something called a temperature inversion. So this has got to affect what you are doing. So I'm going to show a weather graphic here. So typically in the atmosphere, the warm air is at the ground, and typically let's put it back up. There we go. So typically with the weather here, we have the warm air at the ground, and then it rises. So it cools as it's going up into the atmosphere. However, with a temperature inversion, what ends up happening is that we have this warm layer. Sometimes we call it a cap in the winter, in the summertime. We say it's too hot to rain. Sometimes we talk about that. So we have this warm cap up above, and that doesn't allow the smoke and the heat to rise. So when there's an inversion, what does that do to the smoke and the remnants of fireworks when they're being lifted off?
The smoke definitely affects the smoke, especially if the air's not moving too much. It just hangs there, and it makes it hard for people to view in the area. We always want some sort of breeze to help pull the smoke away from the crowd so they can actually see what's going on. But as far as the rest of it goes, it'll still go up and do its job. It really affects the smoke.
So then that limits the visibility, I assume.
Yes.
So whenever there's this type of inversion that occurs with on a certain day, does this cause problems for viewers? Like, do you want the viewers to be further away because there's going to be more smoke?
No, there's a lot of ideal situations you want.
Right.
But you don't always get them. But yeah, you just hope for the best, and sometimes it doesn't work out when it comes to the smoke. They still get a good show, but it's not as good because of the smoke. Yeah, and there's nothing we can do about that.
So what's your ideal weather conditions then?
Probably lower 80s, upper 70s, low humidity, and a slight breeze.
Slight breeze. Okay, but you mentioned the humidity. How does the humidity does it affect the colors, or does it affect something else?
Humidity really only affects the sound. The thicker the air is, the louder the sound is.
Okay. What about the burn rate or the vibrancy of the colors? Does that make any difference?
No, not in today's world. With the chemicals they use and the different types of stuff, they've accounted for that. So.
But it used to cause problems? How did it used to cause issues?
Well, in typical moisture, when you'd light something and the fuse would suck up some of the moisture, it would burn slower than normal. So if you have a timed event, it may to us in that world, like if you're off a second, that's an eternity. To everybody else, like, oh, we didn't see nothing. So.
Yeah, because timing for you is everything, and it's down to the last second on all of these fireworks as you're launching them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What about air temperature? Does that affect anything? I mean, you mentioned launching in the winter time. You launch in the summertime. Does it ever get too cold where you can't launch fireworks?
No. Well, I've shot shows in sub-zero weather.
Really?
Yeah. No problem. It's horrible, but it's
it's probably more horrible for you than it is for anyone else.
And I've shot them at over 100 degrees. So nothing affects them in today's world.
That's pretty amazing. So what about on a cloudy night? Now, we talked about a temperature inversion where you can get more smoke. And so what about when it's cloudy out and you have low clouds versus high clouds? How does that make a difference?
I mean, the lower the cloud is, it helps with the sound as well.
Oh, okay.
It'll bounce the sound off and it makes it sound
Insulating,
like it's, yeah.
like a blanket.
Typically, I mean, I've never shot fireworks through clouds before. They've never been that low, but it really doesn't affect too much other than the sound.
Okay. So the clouds are working like a blanket there and trying to keep things, you said that you can hear better. And is the colors, are they any different if it was cloudy out versus a clear sky?
No,
No?
not really. You may see illumination off of the clouds depending on how high they are.
Okay.
But other than that, not really.
So what cities will American Fireworks be launching fireworks this 4th of July?
In the Dayton area, I do the show in Delco Park in Kettering.
Okay.
We'll be the city of Dayton, Centerville. We do their show. We do Tip City. We do Piqua, Troy, West Milton, and a whole bunch of small towns around those areas.
Okay, so you're very busy this time of the year.
yeah.
So how far in advance do you check the weather forecast before going out and setting up all of your fireworks?
So, like, we have a show tomorrow down at Kirkwood, close to Wilmington, and we're already checking the weather. We started probably yesterday, just kind of getting an idea. You know, you start wrapping things around. You're trying to get ahead of the game, sort of wrap your mind around what's coming, and then just keep updating it. And generally, it'll either get better or worse. It rarely stays the same. Because the weather's always
Constantly changing.
constantly changing.
So what is the most important weather condition that you are looking at when you are setting up these displays?
Whether it's going to rain or not.
Right.
We gotta combat that to make sure that we set things up and nothing gets wet. Because some of the stuff could sit for hours. And if it gets wet and it sits for hours, that stuff will soak in, and it no longer becomes a beautiful shell. It becomes a solid bomb.
Yeah.
It can explode. It may not go, or if you get water in the tube, the lift charge may get just enough wet that only part of it goes, and the shell doesn't come all the way out, or doesn't come out at all and blows up in the tube, and now you got a mess.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of, what are some safety tips that you can tell folks for either doing their own personal fireworks or going to a fireworks show?
The biggest thing, if you're doing your own fireworks, respect the firework, because it doesn't care who you are. You light it, it's going to shoot. Just keep your head out from, over top of the stuff. When possible, let professionals help you. How it's changed the law now, so anybody can shoot their own stuff in their backyard. Just be mindful where you're shooting. Don't burn somebody's house down.
Don't want that, do we?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to end up like this dummy here who lost his arm either.
Yes. And for people going to a show,
Yes.
please respect the area that we have roped off or caution taped off. That's there for a reason. For whatever reason, you put the caution tape up, people think, we call it invitation tape in our industry, because everybody thinks, I can go in there too.
Exactly. Everybody thinks that they have an invitation to go with. Oh, I get it.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for joining me today on Under the Umbrella. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And if you have any suggestions or a topic that you are interested in, you can always email me at undertheumbrella@wdtn.com. Otherwise, have a great day. Until next time.